We're good.
Welcome to Forktales, everybody. Thank you for coming. I have a pretty big list of people to thank, and I wanted to give you a description of what Forktale is. Forktale is an opportunity for us to get together as a community and hear stories sourced from your community and enjoy a bite to eat, which was made from food which was as locally sourced as possible to encourage that type of locavore feeling for the evening. This is the second Forktale that we did. The first one was at Beach Hill, on top of Beach Nut. And I would like to thank our gracious hosts, the Alaskan Transportation Museum, who opened up this place for us and allowed us to give this wonderful, well, hopefully it'll be wonderful, allowed us to give this presentation to you. Can I just get a quick show of hands? Is anybody here a member? Is any a member of Alaskan? We got one there. We got two. There is membership material available at the counter there. If you're interested, Alaskan Transportation Museum is a wonderful local resource. It's a world-class museum, and we are just really thrilled, and we thank our hosts. I would also, did everybody get enough food? Yeah? I didn't really, yeah. I think I'm gonna nosh in between. I'd like to thank our wonderful chef, Courtney Soupforth, who's back there putting together the food. There she is. I'd like to tell you that I helped a little bit, just like a little like prep work and stuff like that. And as did Jessica, who's over there assembling, my wife Jessica, who's assembling food, and a host of other people. So I go to help Courtney in the kitchen earlier yesterday after work, and she's like a whirling dervish in the kitchen. And I open the door, and she's got like a backpack on, and there's like a 3-year-old in that thing. And that's the way she cooked for all last night. And then we cooked starting at 8 o'clock this morning until, well, we're still going. So thank you, Courtney. You did an amazing job. I'm not sure if anybody had the figs, the raw figs with ricotta cheese and drizzled honey. That was donated to us by Allison Lakin of Lakin's Gorgeous Cheese, which was absolutely fantastic. And when I got it, I'm not sure if you saw it, it looked like no other ricotta I've ever seen before, and it had an amazing density and texture that was just wonderful. Thank you so much for making that and for doing what you do in our community. I wanted to talk just really kind of briefly about, last night there was a really crappy thing that happened in France, and it occurred to me that I should probably talk about that for a second or two, because Forktale is an opportunity to get together and hear stories from your community and break bread with your neighbors. And it's meant to kind of encourage a resilient and sustainable community, because that's what I think we really need here in Maine. We face a lot of challenges economically, and it's important that we engage in activities like this. And as I look out in the crowd, I see a lot of people that are doing this in their community. And I realize that developing a compassionate, resilient community is exactly the antithesis of the worldview that we saw on display last night. So I'd like to just thank you for coming out and engaging in this uplifting and healthy, well, hopefully uplifting and healthy behavior. So thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. And I'd also like to thank our storytellers who have been working for the past 2 months to put together these tales of things that happened in their lives. This is called Forktale Road Trip. The theme of tonight is stories, things that happened to us getting from point A to point B. We have 5 stories. Each story is between, well, roughly 9 and 12 minutes. So we should have you out of here in just slightly less than an hour. After you hear the stories, if you'd like to spend a little bit more time, if you'd like to meet your neighbors and talk about what you're interested in, and nosh a little bit more, we're not going to put the food away right away. We'd love to have a little after party with you guys here, so please feel free. Nobody's kicking you out. I think that is it. I think I can introduce our first story. Our first storyteller is Robert Kaiser. He is a teacher at the Ashwood Waldorf School, and he lives in Union, Maine. Like every other storyteller we have here, Robert is not a professional storyteller. He's a teacher. He's a member of your community. And he has agreed to tell the story about how he traveled in a 1915 Model T, which looks exactly like this 1915 Model T, which we'd like to thank our friends at Owl's Head Transportation Museum for providing us with. Apparently they've got a bunch of them. They're like, you know, you want to take it home? I'm like, no, maybe Robert would. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Kaiser.
So my Uncle Doug and I are coming down a mountain pass in the Yukon Territory. We've got the top down, bluebird sky overhead, snow-covered peaks all around us. Sun is glinting off the brass radiator, the eagle winged hood ornament, my Uncle Doug's bald head. We got Johnny Cash blaring on the radio. I breathe the mountain air, man. I've traveled up ahead of my share, man. I've been everywhere. Breeze blowing by us is warm and it smells of spruce and dust and moss, the only thing out there besides us. Occasionally we'd get these gusts of frigid air coming down off the mountains, carrying a hint of the ubiquitous wood smoke from scattered wildfires all around the area. Well, we're coming down and we are both literally and figuratively on top of the world. We had just been in Haines, Alaska, in the Southeast Alaska State Fair Parade, where people were cheering and waving to us, and there we were driving along. Just a few days before that, we had a page 2 photo spread in the Juneau Empire newspaper. We had one picture on the front page, but most of that was taken up over their governor had just resigned. Apparently, she didn't do so well in a presidential bid. Despite this grand view, I've got my hands on the steering wheel and I've got my eyes glued onto the GPS. You see, I wasn't looking for any road. There was only one road and we were on it. I was keeping my eye on the speed. The reason we were in the parade or in the newspaper, and the reason I had to watch the GPS for the speed, was because we were in a 1915 Model T Ford Rosalita. My Uncle Doug was driving from Manhattan to Seattle with 54 other Model Ts to commemorate 100 years of the ocean-to-ocean automobile race from Manhattan to Seattle. The Model T won under protest. I was in California finishing up a teacher training, and I called him up on his cell phone and see what he was going to do after he reached Seattle. What if I showed up in Seattle? You want to go to Alaska? My Uncle Doug responded, if you're in Alaska or Seattle when I'm there, we'll go to Alaska. Here I am. Driving down Rosalita. Her cab is somewhat like a uncomfortable love seat. The seat cushion is leather, but that's over horsehair, over box spring, and that box spring is being dragged over gravel. She's got 3 pedals, a brake, a forward, and a reverse. There's a lever here on the side, and when you have it all the way forward, you're in 2nd gear. But when you have it all the way back, that's the parking brake. There's nothing on the dash, no instruments or anything, which is why I have to look at the GPS for the speed. I've got my hands on the wooden steering wheel, I've got the spark down and the throttle down, full speed. I'm defining one of the 2 cardinal rules of a Model T. They are, it doesn't go fast, it goes forward. It doesn't stop, it slows down. Well, going down this mountain pass, I'm getting her fast. 35 miles an hour in a Model T is fast, and that's with a tailwind. But I'm looking at the GPS, and I see 50 miles an hour. 53 miles an hour. 55 miles an hour. If any of you have ever gone 55 miles an hour in a cardboard box, you have a sense of what I'm talking about. white knuckling, 57 miles an hour. I look at my uncle, I look back up, oh shit! I look at my uncle, he looks at me, we both look at the flagger holding the stop sign. All three of us look at the grader across both lanes in front of us 200 feet. I put both feet down on the brake pedal. I pull back on the parking brake. My uncle reaches over with his feet. He puts one foot on the forward pedal, one foot on the reverse pedal. We brace ourselves. We exchange worried looks with the flagger as we roll by. Sorry! But it's okay. We're at a speed now I'm much more familiar with in a Model T. Slow. Finally stop, about 25 feet away from the grader. Well, might as well open up old Milwaukee and put something in the manifold cooker, my uncle says. Sure, right after I change my pants. My Uncle Doug pulls a pork tenderloin out of the cooler and some barbecue sauce, and he lifts up Rosie's hood. The grader finally gets turned around, and the flagger just waves us on, and we drive a few more hours, and we're keeping our eye down and looking for somewhere to pull off for the night. I spot a dirt road going off the main drag, and I pull off and bumpity bump into the who knows what, spruce-covered trail. Finally, it opens up into this great swale about a half mile wide and has a dip down in the middle, and it's just miles long, surrounded by spruce trees. I pull right down in the middle there. That way, I imagine if a grizzly bear were to come out from those spruce trees, we'd have enough time to pack up as much as we can and get her started up before that grizzly bear chased us down. I pull out the camping chairs and the table, and my Uncle Doug goes back underneath Rosie's hood, and he pulls out fresh, steaming pulled pork. We ate pretty good for being out in the middle of nowhere. Over dinner, we discuss the happenings of the day, like a couple of hunters after the hunt. Did you see the look on the grader operator's face? My uncle said. I wonder if he had to change his pants. We'd also go over the happenings of our trip, like how we ended up in that Southeast Alaska State Fair parade. You see, Model T drivers are often approached and asked a lot of questions. My Uncle Doug loves the attention, but he's not always so gracious with his answers. What is it? Are you talking about my car? Yeah, it's a car. How fast does it go? Well, have a look at the speedometer. There is no speedometer. How many miles are on that thing? Have a look at the odometer. Doesn't have an odometer. What do you do if it breaks? I fix it. Can you still buy parts or tires for that thing? If I still have money. Are those spokes real wood? How do you answer that? When we're filling up at the gas station, putting regular gasoline in, does that thing take regular gasoline? My uncle's face would say it all. So I took over answering questions and talking to people. Yeah, she's mine. Him? He's the mechanic. And the cook. He's mute. Well, one night in Skagway, Alaska, I'm waiting for my uncle outside of a market. And this woman pulls up alongside me in a minivan and rolls down her window. I don't know what it was, but maybe she just teed me up too well. What year is it? My Uncle Doug was coming out of the market when he heard that. 2009. My Uncle Doug took a turn and pretended like he wasn't with me. He's seen this play out before. I was talking about your car. My husband has a 1928 Model A Roadster. He's in Haines tonight. He'll be in the Southeast Alaska State Fair tomorrow. If I made him a call and you were on the first ferry tomorrow morning, you guys could be in it too. Suddenly my uncle shows up. We'd love to. After dinner, I'd gather up our dishes and walk alone, far, far away, smelling of deliciousness, out into the woods to clean up everything. I don't know why you bother doing that, my uncle would say. We haven't seen any bears yet. Yeah, I'd like to think that's because I keep doing this. Every stop along the road, there's been signs about grizzly bears. We've crossed the border 3 times, and each time it went like this. Where you fellas headed? Up to Fairbanks, I guess. We hadn't made much more plans than that initial conversation about going to Alaska. Answering Alaska at the border wasn't enough of an answer. You gentlemen have any firearms to declare? No, sir. You don't have any guns? No. He called over another officer. Suddenly I'm realizing perhaps our answer is wrong. I think a guy came in the lane next to us. He held up a buffalo gun and they waved him right through. To everybody else, they were saying, "Have a nice day." To us, they said, "Good luck." I praised the Lord every time I came back from a dishwashing excursion unmauled, and every morning that a grizzly bear didn't tear Rosie apart, and us trying to get to the smoked meat underneath where we slept. We'd set up camp, and Rosie looked a little bit like this tea here, except my Uncle Doug converted her into what he called an all-American roadster, basically a Model T RV. She had a pop-up tent on the back, and it fit a queen-size bed. There was a 6 by 4 by 7 foot changing area in there. The bathroom was a shovel. Next morning, we'd pack up and we'd hit the road again. Thank goodness we weren't mauled by any bears or bull moose, mountain lions, marmots, anything that could have gotten through the thin exterior of Rosie. We had trouble keeping the mosquitoes out. Alaska and the mountains weren't much of a match for Rosie. I was worried about the animals, but it seemed like the smell of grease and oil and gasoline mixed with the smell of smoky wood and leather kept them all at bay. The hills were no match for her. The distance between gas stations was a bit of a stretch. We had a few close calls. Going up those mountain peaks, Rosie went about 7 miles an hour. But coming back down, I had my chance. I could see all the way down to the bottom this time, crystal clear. Dropped the spark, dropped the throttle, and I let her go. 55 miles an hour, white knuckling, 57, 60 miles an hour, 63 miles an hour when we hit the bottom. Woo-hoo! That's exciting. My Uncle Doug and I made it to Fairbanks with no lack of stories more. We both talk about the story, our trip every time we come together, and we're both left with 2 lessons. For my uncle, there can be snow on the ground in the summer. And just because there was ocean next to our campsite the night before, it's perfectly normal for it to be all gone that next morning. For me, a Model T can go fast, a lot faster than it ever should. And the other is a Model T can stop, just don't plan on it. Thank you.
Well, that's a very hopeful story.